John, it was January 21st, 2018. You had just beaten Minnesota, and then we're going to turn it over to everybody else. But
yeah,
so you won that game.
38 unanswered.
Yeah, I know exactly. Good memory. You didn't even have to look it up. No, but here's the question. First one. So, do you go straight home after that? What do you do after that game? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, I went home. It was a night game, obviously. So obviously you wanted to, I'd never been to a Super Bowl before. We're talking about the NFC Championship, right?
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Minnesota a couple times when I was in Philly.
Yeah.
So yeah, we went home. I had no idea what to expect the next day when I got in the office. I treated it like any normal Monday, and just went in, graded the tape. And then about midday, everyone got an email that said, because we had a first round bye. So, we had a little extra time. And our families came in. I think it was on the Players' Day off on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Uh, that said, and they outlined, what it was going to be like. Here are the planes going to Minneapolis. Here's this. This is how many tickets you have the opportunity to buy. Blah blah blah. And I appreciate it because you want to get those things out of the way as quickly as possible, so you can just concentrate on football. Like that.
Sure.
That was the message to the players and Doug to our staff was get all this stuff out of the way as quick as we can. So I called my parents and called my close buddies, and I was like, "Hey, I need to know by this day,
Yeah.
Thursday, if you're coming or not, blah blah blah, because I want to get all this stuff done." Because you game plan pretty much that week. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but once you get to the Super Bowl, it is like everyone's pulled in 100 different directions. Players, coaches, everybody. I mean, you have media obligations every day you have to do. So I would say about 90% of our game plan was in by the time we landed in Minnesota. We made a few tweaks here and there. Um, but about the majority of the game plan was in by the time that we left Philadelphia to go to Minnesota for the Super Bowl.
Did one more for you. So that next at what point do you meet with Howie, the pro personnel staff, analytics? Like, is that later in the week, or was that morning? Like, what does your week
To
look
get
like
ready for
before?
the Patriots.
Yes.
We kept it as much in a normal schedule as we could, so we met with them Monday night.
Okay.
That Monday night. So
Yes.
you always meet on the next team on Monday night with the pro personnel department.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right, let's get started, folks. Who wants to be up first?
I'll go first.
All right, Carl. Go ahead, Carl.
Okay.
Carl, what's up, man? Good to see you every week, brother.
Yeah, Flip, great to see you. Thank you for doing this. When you all finished that first round game against Atlanta, that went down to the last play. Now you're playing Minnesota, #1 defense. Did you have an idea for the offense of how you were going to attack them going into the Atlanta game?
That's a great question. Your quality control guys are getting, because you don't know who you're going to play, obviously, a lot of times. So the quality control guys have a busy week, because they have to break down certain games for each opponent. So as a coach, you take it one game at a time. You can't get to game 7 if you don't win game 6. So it's like, you got to treat each game like it's its own separate entity. So we were all about Atlanta, obviously, when we were playing Atlanta. And then you find a way the next week. You just find a way, and you move on to Minnesota. But if you spend 1 ounce of the next week getting ready for the next opponent, in my opinion, that's bad news, because you just, especially when it's a one and done playoff situation, you got to have 100% of your mind and your focus on that opponent that week.
Gotcha.
Thanks so much for doing this.
What's up, Frank?
I'm doing well, my friend.
Good.
So I'm going to ask you a question about this week. The Eagles are, Commanders. I mean, it's very rare you're going to play a team 3 times in a season. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's really not too much that you're not going to know about your opponent going into this game. So my question to you would be this. Obviously the last time the Eagles and Commanders played, Jaden Daniels may have had his best game of the season. If Vic Fangio called you right now and he said, Coach, I'm a little bit concerned about Jaden Daniels in this game and letting him get loose, what would be your advice to him to try to make Jaden maybe uncomfortable?
I would never show the look that I'm going to end up in, except for maybe 1 or 2 times out of 10, where you think you're going to rotate and all of a sudden you don't. But the other times you start in single high and end up in 2 high, or vice versa. I would not let him have a playoff mentally. I would challenge him to play a full game in the NFC Championship game as a rookie and have to work his brain the whole time. and see if you could wear him out mentally. I'm gonna be honest with you. This is I'm not a betting man. I don't gamble.
Yeah.
I've never bet on a game.
Yep.
I'm just not. But if I was a betting man, I would have taken Detroit all day long last week. So I thought those games are hard for rookies, man. Okay. And he's proven that he can handle it. And I mean, that dude is as mentally tough as a young player as I've seen. And I would not show him 8 times out of 10. I'd show him a different look than I'm going to end up in. It makes me think.
How we doing tonight, Coach?
Hey, Travis.
Hey, so my question is, if you were the coach going into this game, do you think that it's an advantage or a disadvantage playing a team that you've already played so much this year?
The only experience I have in playing a team 3 times is actually when I was coaching for the New York Giants. We played the Philadelphia Eagles 3 times in 2006. Okay. And so that was the David Akers in the playoffs hit a last-second field goal against us in 2006 in Philly. I forget. We beat them in Philadelphia, I think week 2 of that season. Plaxico made a great catch in the end zone. This was 2006. So I think Plaxico made a great catch. It would have been in the Wells Fargo Center end zone. Okay, on the far end zone. Okay. So I know I don't remember what I had for lunch today, but anyway, but yeah, so they ended up, I forget, I think the Eagles, somebody can Google it for me. I think the Eagles beat us up in New Jersey later on in the season. It was Jeff Garcia. Okay. And then Garcia beat us in the playoffs. And David Akers hit that last-second field goal against us, I think, with 3 seconds to go in the game.
Okay.
So it's hard. I'd be concerned, like, if the Eagles were, the Eagles are 1-1 this week against this year against the Commanders. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. It's hard.
Sure.
And this is going to be an awesome game. This is going to be battle royale type of game. I mean, it's going to be awesome.
One thing before we move on to Jason, John, when you face a team, okay, so they're going to face them for the 3rd time. Do you bring out something you go, like, you haven't shown on tape?
You have to.
Training camp? Do you go to training camp, or
you have
just
to bring out something that they haven't seen? Yeah, I mean, the Eagles are well coached, and so are the Commanders. It is what it is. There'll be something. But at the end of the day, you have a whole season. I guarantee they have a whole season broken down on both teams have a whole season broken down on each other. You got to be careful too in these games about, we call it paralysis by analysis. You got to be very careful about letting the guys just go out and play loose. And what got us here, guys? We got to remember now. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Let's stay with what got us here. All right, we're in the NFC Championship game for a reason. All right, we didn't get here by a fluke. All right, so let's go out and do what we do well. And again, it's just another week for a faceless opponent.
My question is around how are the coaching staff, and from your experience this week, obviously with Jalen hurting his knee in the game, he says he's going to play, but until you actually truly get in the game, you're not going to know exactly maybe some of the things that he can and can't do, and can he even last the whole game potentially. And so then how do you then go around game planning around that, and how much work then do you get potentially in this case for Pickett?
I love talking to you guys. You guys brings the heat with these questions. These are awesome and well thought out. That's an awesome question. All right, so the coaches know how much Jalen can do right now.
It's his left knee, by the way, just so you know. It's his plant leg, so he's a right-hand thrower, right? Yeah, so
it'd be more of a problem if it was his right knee.
Okay, yeah. It's just
it'd be more of a problem if it was his right knee.
Good point.
So that's his drive foot.
Yeah.
So they know, the coaches know, like it's pretty, and the players know too. All right, and because they're at practice and they see it. You might give Cody a few reps. This is the NFC Championship, man.
Not Kenny Pickett, not Cody.
Kenny, I'm sorry, but Kenny from the University of Pittsburgh.
There you go.
Maybe a few reps, but this is the NFC Championship game. You got to get your reps in, and you ride with what got you there, and that's Jalen.
Gotcha.
And again, Jalen's at his best when there's a threat of run there, and that's when he's at his best, and that's cause of concern for the Eagles.
Are you just going to get it out of his hands quickly? So he like, what do you do? We're not playing.
You got to do what you got to do to win this game. You'll worry
Okay.
about the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl. You got to win the game, and if that means to run him 2 or 3 times, you run him. And I guarantee he's telling the coaches he wants to run the ball. I just being around that kid and knowing the type of makeup he is and how tough he is mentally and physically, he's telling the coaches to do whatever the hell you have to do to win this
Okay.
game.
Knowing how our offense is mostly geared towards the run, I was wondering as offensive coordinator, like, how do you scheme up the runs in the run game, when you're going against an opponent? Like, do you focus more so on the offensive line and their gaps, or are you focusing on targeting an actual linebacker at the second level? Like, or is it a combination of both?
Combination of both. So this week, the Eagles are going to, the receivers are really going to have to understand who the force player is. All right. So in my opinion, okay, yeah, I could be 100% wrong because we're not in the Commanders building. I think the Commanders are going to show a ton of single high. I think they're going to load the box and they're going to make Jalen Hurts beat them. Okay. And make throws to the outside. So how do you beat single high coverage? All right. You can work outside the numbers. So they're, the receivers, the Eagles receivers are going to have to win their one-on-ones. All right. And single high coverage is conducive for the passing game. It really is. There's a lot of things you can do against single high that are, you can get the ball out quick and do those things. But if I'm Dan Quinn, I'm loading the box. I'm sticking an extra guy in the box all the time. Don't be shocked if you see the Eagles have the short motion receivers down into the box, go dig out the force player. I didn't want the quarterbacks ever to get jammed into like the run game and the scheme and all that, but we always had to know who the force player was, who's responsible for the force player. And so because we handled that, we had to motion a guy down or motion a guy across the formation to handle the force player. And that's how I would play the Eagles this week. And I would try to make Jalen Hurts beat us throwing the football, especially with him dinged up in his knee. And